speak to you in the name of God, who speaks to us in our hearts, minds, and souls. Amen. So Judas is, if not like the proto-character, he's one of the characters that we love to hate in the Bible. And at this time of year, it's always good to remember that Judas was a human being. In this particular telling of the story of the Last Supper, there is this moment, and perhaps you've had a moment like this, perhaps you haven't. Something weird happens, you're really not sure what just happened. That's captured a little bit in this reading when it says that the disciples knew that Judas carried the common purse, or he was their treasurer, he kept all their money, so maybe Jesus was asking him to go and do something. There was this confusion. They didn't really understand what had just happened. And we have the benefit of knowing the story, the benefit of kind of the narration of the story. We already knew that Judas was struggling. We knew that Judas was going to betray Jesus. But in that moment, over this sacred act of breaking and sharing bread, something weird happened, and they didn't quite know what. And it's not until much later that they would have reflected and thought about and realized that that was a particular moment of betrayal. Now, in this particular version of the story, it says when Jesus is answering the question of who is it that's going to betray you, and he says, it's the one that I give this bread to. And he dips the bread and he gives it to Judas. But there's a certain tradition in that kind of communal eating that you would actually be giving bread to everybody. So in the bigger, fuller picture of the meal, what you don't see is that Jesus would have dipped the bread and given bread to everybody. I mean, we need a villain for the story. So we need Judas to betray Jesus, otherwise certain things wouldn't have happened in the way that they did. But Jesus was not only betrayed by Judas. Each and every one of those disciples struggled. Each and every one betrayed Jesus in their own way. And so in that, they are a reflection of us in the story. And so especially at this point in Holy Week, we remember. We remember the mistakes that we made. We remember how we've hurt people unintentionally, sometimes intentionally. We remember the things that we've done wrong. We remember. And the key is that we don't stay there. What happens in one way and what doesn't happen in another way is accountability. Judas, so overcome by grief, by the sense of betrayal, takes his own life. There isn't the chance for Judas to regain that accountability or take account for his own actions. But there is for the other disciples. One of my professors in New Testament said that the first Good Friday was not just a single day. That after Judas had betrayed Jesus and Jesus was taken into custody and whipped and flogged and they were leading him to the cross, Judas wasn't the only one that ran away. Even Peter realizes, we know the story, that he has run away, that he has abandoned Jesus. That first Good Friday didn't just end at the end of the day and they all gathered the next morning. Even after the resurrection, it took years for the community to recover, for the community to actually gather and coalesce into something that we could call the early church. Forgiveness is not just something that happens. It's an easy word to say, and it's a much harder word to live. It's a much harder thing to live out, especially with oneself. being able to take account for those hurts that we have caused others, being able to take account for the actions that we've done that we wish that we didn't, that we hadn't, is part of life. It's a particular part of the Christian life. We are a people of the second chance. We are a people of the resurrection. And what that means is being held accountable. What that means is living into forgiveness, a forgiveness that changes and transforms and doesn't allow us to wallow in self-pity and guilt and feeling awful. This is lived out in so many different ways. But particularly this season of Lent, this year, our bishop chose a book for us to read called The Reason You Walk. It's written by a man named Wab Canoe, First Nations Anishinaabe man from Winnipeg. If you haven't had the chance to read the book, I highly recommend it. Coming out of the book, Reverend Michael, who comes from Grace and is here now, said that he participated in an exercise just a little while ago, and it's called the blanket exercise. It helps people understand a little bit more the colonial history of Canada, the relationship between Canada and First Nations. One of the people leading that exercise had said that he really struggles with doing the exercise with faith groups because we're really good at coming out and we're really good at participating and we're really good at feeling bad and then doing nothing. What we're reminded of in the midst of Holy Week and leading into Easter is that we don't get to just stay there. We don't get to do nothing. It might not be easy and it might take time, but we move. We move from a place of darkness and betrayal, a place potentially of fear, self-loathing, a dark place. We move from the tomb to the place of life. We are a people of the second chance. We are the people of the resurrection. And it gets lived out in so many different ways. So as we move through the three most important days of the Christian year, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, or Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, and Holy Saturday, which is the beginning of the celebration of Easter. Move through those days. Start at the dinner, the holy act of breaking bread. Move through the darkness and the betrayal into the tomb, and move from the tomb into the light, into the accountability, into the second chance, into new life. This season, these days, are some of the most important days of our year. It reminds us of who we are, why we proclaim what we do, and reminds us that we are constantly in motion. It's never a straight line. It's never a wide open road. Jesus himself said it's a narrow, rocky, winding path. But we move. We constantly move towards that which gives life, that which brings life. You are redeemed, you are forgiven, and you are given a second chance and life, always and forever and over again. Amen.